And it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say to...
Hi, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. Those were the days with George Mitchell. How are you, George?
Fine, Steve, thank you.
Great stuff, mate. And what year are you taking us back to today?
1964-65.
64-65 season.
Quite an important year.
Over to you then, George.
Thank you, Steve. Just to set the scene, as I usually do, 64, if you're interested in music at all, for the last 5-6 years, Elvis has had the charts to himself. But I've done the top 10 for this year because it's remarkable. Top of the Pops, Roy Orbison, Pretty Woman. And then number 2, the Beatles, Want to Hold Your Hand. Number 3, the Beatles, She Loves You. Number 4, the Beatles, I Feel Fine. And number 5, a local interest, the Animals were number 5 with House the Rising Sun. Interesting story about that one, a personal story, is that 2 doors from where Marjorie's mum used to live, the original drummer of the Animals lived. And he used to drive the Street Crackers when he was practicing on a Sunday, on a weekend. Anyway, Barry Preston, they called him. He eventually came out with another group, but on a trip back from a gig with the Animals, he fell out with the lead singer, Alan Price, over the cost of the fuel because Barry had the van. And so they fell out and Barry dropped out of the Animals. And about a week later, the Animals signed a contract for his big record company. So Barry, the cost of his petrol was expensive for Barry, I'm afraid. He did get back with another group, but not one as strong as the Animals. Number 6, the Beatles, A Hard Day's Night. And number 7, Giacola Cinquetti, Non Hole Era Amati. Number 8, the Beatles, Can't Buy Me Love. And number 9, the Righteous Brothers, You've Lost That Lovin' Feeling. And number 10, Louis Armstrong with Hello Dolly. What a top 10 that was, with the Beatles really breaking in with a bang, as you could say. And then if you're going to the cinema, well, you could go and watch Mary Poppins was the one that was making all the money. My Fair Lady wasn't far behind. And then Goldfinger for all the spy catcher fans, which I like, Goldfinger. And the Carpetbaggers was another picture which I enjoyed. So that sets the scene for what people were doing in 1964. At Newcastle, of course, it's not just what happens on the field. What happens off the field was interesting as well, because it was about this time that rumours started to emerge that the club and the city were bidden to get involved in the 1966 World Cup and what the implications of that would be. And the rumours were that Newcastle were getting ready to do some development on the ground, particularly at the Gallagher Lane. But nobody knew exactly what. But that was the rumour that was flying around, and everybody was really interested in what was likely to happen. Joe Harvey in the previous few years, it had a big turnover of staff. You know, it doesn't. That's a nice. That's everybody. That's the whole staff. He had a big clear out, and usually a dozen in and a dozen out. Well, this particular year, 64, he didn't. He brought David Young in, a defender from Blythe Spartans. Peter Noble from Concert, midfielder. And he bought a Chelsea winger called Tommy Knox, who was an interesting little character and played quite a few times for Newcastle. And two out, as they say in these papers. Len Walker, an ex-junior colleague of mine from years ago, went to Aldershot. Colin Taylor, who were bought from Walsall, went back to Walsall for £10,000. We only paid about 15 for him. But the big one was Barry Thomas, a goal scorer, who was a prolific for us for a couple of years. He went back to Scunthorpe. Well, Charlie Mitten only paid 25,000 for him. We had him for nearly 3 years, and he went back to Scunthorpe for 20,000, which I don't think was bad business, to be honest. And Les O'Neill, another ex-junior player, was allowed to go to Darlington for free. So that's the ins and outs, which from previous seasons were minimal compared to what Harvey was doing. I think there's one or two more interesting photographs before we get into the games. That's the man himself. That's a typical picture of Joe Harvey on the touchline in the dugout, and a very young picture of Frank Clark, who just signed from a Northern League club, Crook, and now that's a better team photo of Newcastle at the time, with Gordon Marshall, the goalkeeper, John McGrath at the far left, Jim Ailey at the far right, and in the front row, Alan Suddick, David Hilly, Stan Anderson, the captain, and at the time Barry Thomas, who was still there at the time, and then Jeff Allen on the far right, whose name crops up at the minute because of Elliot Anderson, of course. I think the next one's now that's Alan Suddick. I think on one of the platforms we're discussing young players who didn't fulfill their potential at Newcastle. Now this is one that I think didn't fulfill the potential, and Newcastle, Joe Harvey let him go to Blackpool eventually, but what a talented player. That's John McGrath, great centre half back, great stopper. Alan Suddick, I remember, because when I was in the juniors, he was just coming through from school. He wouldn't be a 14-year-old because he's a good bit younger than me. And I remember one day somebody mentioning in the dressing room when I was there, and Ted Hughes, the guy that ran the juniors and the ends, was in the dressing room, and somebody said, "Hey, you see this Suddick? He's great." And very quick, Ted Hughes turned around and said, "Yes, but he won't do what he's bloody told." and I think that persisted, which is probably what frustrated Joe Harvey, I suspect, to get rid of him. And John McGrath came from Bury as a swap for Bob Stokoe and was a good servant and really did well for Newcastle. Very popular player. Is there any more, Steve?
Program next, mate.
Right. Okay. We're into the games now. The season, I think Harvey is banking on his middle three, Anderson, McGrath and Ailey, to carry the team. And with Marshall in goal and McGarry at centre forward or others at centre forward, he thought he had the spine of a team that would do well. And so it was proved to be right. And the first game, I think, is Charlton Athletic.
Burnley.
Burnley.
Pre-season friendly.
Ah, yeah, right. I'd forgotten what pre-season friendlies, Steve. 2 friendlies, would you believe? One at home and one away against Burnley. Now, our fans were getting sick of this. You can tell by the crowd, 6,000. And I mean, we're getting into an interesting season, and yet we're still playing these friendlies, which are. I still struggle to understand the logic there. But anyway, and there's Burnley. That's the game against Burnley at St James's, with Gordon, with the Burnley goalkeeper Blacklow and Jeff Allen and Ollie Burton there in the background. It's good to see the ground quite full though. And that's the teams that played on the day. And the next one, Steve, that's it. That's the first league game, Charlton. It was anticipated, I think, by most in the Gallagher that we would win this one because Charlton weren't a particularly brilliant side in the season before. In fact, we'd give them two hammerings, but wasn't to be because we ended up with a 1-1. It was very frustrating. David Hilly gave with the lead just before half time, but Roy Matthews equalised for them just before the end. And the team at the time was Marshall, Craig, Clark. That fullback pairing goes through the season. Anderson, McGrath, Ailey, Hilly, McGarry, Barry Thomas is still there, Willie Penman and Trevor Hockey. And that was a team that would go for quite a few games without much change. Charlton had very few what you'd call nationally known players except for the left winger, Len Glover, who played for Charlton and Leicester and one or two players, came close to the England squad more than once. So we got a 1-1 draw out of that one. The next game was a home game against Southampton. I don't think there's a picture for that one, Steve. And we won 2-1. And the momentum in the Gallagher was starting to go up, and the crowd went up to 25,000. And it was Barry Thomas and David Tilley that scored for us, and George O'Brien scored for Southampton. Same team as played in the first game: Marshall, Clark, Craig Clark, Anderson, McGrath, Eiley, Hilly, McGarry, Thomas, Penman, and Hockey. And Joe Harvey, in the couple of years he's already been there, is very loyal to the players he picks. He brings them back in all the time. And in this particular season, he only uses in a whole season of 46 games, 20 players, which is, that by modern standards is unbelievable. The other thing is he's got to keep them fit, and he obviously seemed to do so. The Southampton team, one or two notables: Tony Knapp, centre half. In midfield, Ken Wimshurst, who used to play for Newcastle, who was an old friend of mine. John McGuigan, who just joined them from us the previous season. Harvey sold John McGuigan to Southampton. And then came Martin Chivers, who was making his way as a centre forward, became very famous as an England player, but with Tottenham, not with Southampton. And Terry Payne on the left wing, who played for years for them and for England. So we've got to start into the season. We're winning. So we're off to Charlton away now, I think. There should be a programme for that, or a picture. Yeah, that's it. And everybody's hoping, well, can we not? Let's hope we can get another point at the Valley. If we got one in St James's, but we did better than that. We beat Charlton 1-0. And Pop Robson scored the goal. Pop came into this team because there was injuries, and Pop came into the team and he scored the winning goal on 72 minutes. And the team was as was before, but with Pop Robson in. And the Charlton team was exactly the same as the one that played at St James's. And the Len Glover was the only person that troubled Newcastle. And the crowd at the Valley was 22,000, which for them is not a bad crowd. So next we're away again to Huddersfield. I don't think I've got it. There's not a picture for them.
No.
And everybody's hoping we could keep this momentum going. And at Leeds Road, only 8,700. It must have been desperate to be standing in there. They'd be shouting to each other, to talk to each other, because it's absolutely terrible. But lo and behold, we beat them 1-0. Ron McGarry scored the goal in 30 minutes. And the team was, as read before, except it was Pop Robson, Hilly, Thomas, McGarry, and Trevor Hockey in the forwards. So Pop Robson kept his place, I think, on the basis because he scored in the previous game. Huddersfield had a number of players from other big teams who were joined them, like Ray Wood, the goalkeeper, came from Manchester United. Peter Dinsdale, who came from Leeds, Len Massey from Leeds, Chris Balderstone, who also came from Leeds, but was an England and Yorkshire cricketer. And it was about this time that Chris Balderstone set an unusual record. On the afternoon, he played for England, and he ended his innings at 51 not out. And at 7:30, he turned out for Huddersfield. And they beat Barnsley 2-0, and he scored one of the goals. I don't think he would get away with doing that now. I mean, can you imagine tripping across from one side of Headingley to the other to Leeds Road to play in a football match? No, wouldn't happen now. But a real genuine sportsman, though, Chris Balderstone, and a nice guy. He really was. So we're now off to Northampton. I think there might be a programme for Northampton. Yeah, that's their programme. Quite a posh programme, actually.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah, nice coat of arms. And and everybody's hoping, well, let's keep it going. Let's keep the momentum going. But it wasn't to be. 15,000 at the game, and we lose to Northampton 1-0 with Brian Etheridge scoring the goal. Our team is just as it was before, except that suddenly Jim Ailey is rested, and a young man called Bob Moncur comes into the team, which is not surprising. He was knocking on the door to be in the team anyway, and he didn't do badly, but we lost 1-0 to Northampton, which kind of slowed the momentum down in terms of where we hoped we were going. Next, we had a home game against Coventry, and I think there might well be a couple of pictures for that. Yep, that's the programme. And 37,000 at the game. And people are now, with the wins that we've had and where we are in the league, nearly top of the league, people are getting excited that could this be a season of something worthwhile. We beat them 2-0. Colin Taylor and Barry Thomas scored the goals, and I think that last picture on was actually Barry Thomas heading his goal into the Coventry net. That's typical Barry Thomas, I have to say. And the team was the same with Moncur in the team instead of Ailey. Coventry, they had one or two old timers who were still making a name for them. George Curtis, who played for him for a long time. Ron Farmer, who played for Sheffield Wednesday. And then in midfield, a young man called Ken Hale, who was a junior at Newcastle and was sold to Coventry by none other than Joe Harvey. And Ken Hale was in their team back home. Ken had a good career with them and ended up with Bury, with quite a few years with Bury. So the people, as I said, were starting to get excited. Next was a home game on the following Wednesday against Plymouth Argyle. And Plymouth Argyle were always a tidy team to watch and a good team to watch. Not always world breakers, but 30,000 at the crowd at the game again. And we beat Plymouth 2-1. And the goal scorers, Colin Taylor and Barry Thomas, as they were in the previous game. And the team was unchanged from the previous game. I mean, the back, Marshall, Craig, Clark, Anderson, McGrath, Moncur hadn't changed for 3 games. In fact, the others had been in all season. And then Hockey, Hilly, Thomas, McGarry and Taylor, apart from Pop Robson occasionally popping in, they had been there. And the thing, extremely loyal to his players, Joe Harvey. Plymouth, well, they had always had a tidy football team. They had one or two names that we knew. Duncan Neal, who was sold to Plymouth by Joe Harvey, and another young man who was just starting to make his name in football, Mike Treblegoe. Now he became famous for a cup final win for Everton, not for Plymouth, for Everton. He scored a winning goal, I think it was against Sheffield Wednesday, and made a name for himself. And indeed got a couple of big transfers on the back of that. But that was the extent of Plymouth's people who were notable or who were worth thinking about. The next game is we went off to Cardiff, and everybody's hoping that surely Cardiff weren't playing very well at the time. They were struggling, and we were sitting right at the top. So everybody thought, well, let's hope we can get a win at Cardiff. But we got a draw, 1-1 draw. And interestingly enough, Bob Cummins, one of our local centre forwards who was signed from Aberdeen, as it happens, scored our goal in the middle of the second half. But in the middle of the first half, Cardiff went in the lead with a goal from Ivor Altchurch, somebody who, again, was sold from Newcastle to Cardiff. It always seems to be a magpie in the teams when you're playing away these days. And Ivor Altchurch was had a good game. He scored against us, but more importantly, in terms of people that names that people might know, was that centre back was no other than John Charles, who wasn't long back from Italy, having spent some time there, and still a remarkable player. As a personal thing, I do remember going to with the juniors to a match at Leeds, and Ted Hughes, the guy that ran the juniors, always used to see if there was anybody in the ground worth talking to. And lo and behold, he said at half time he got permission to extend the half time by 5 minutes so he wanted somebody to come in and talk to her. And the door of the dressing room opened, and in walked this huge guy, well, he seemed huge to me, in a lovely tan suit and a very, very soft Welsh brogue. And it was none other than John Charles. And Ted Hughes had brought him in to talk to the lads and shake hands and all that sort of thing, which was, he didn't have to do that, but it was nice to the kids who were playing. I certainly thought it was fantastic. To go home and tell me family I'd been speaking to John Charles was incredible. And he is in this match at Cardiff still playing. So everybody's thinking, well, we're at the top of the league. We're jumping top second, and other teams below are struggling, and we go to Blackpool. And Blackpool are struggling. Nobody's expecting us. Everybody's expecting us to do something. Well, we didn't. Typical Newcastle disappointment. Blackpool beat us 3-0. And they 13,000 at the game. And Blackpool was starting to get a reasonable team together with one or two players who would make big names for themselves. At fullback, Jimmy Armfield. In midfield, a young man called Alan Ball, who played a big part in the World Cup. And on the left wing, left side of the attack, a man called Des Horn, who again had a long career in football and was very popular, very clever. He never got the England standard, but certainly was somebody we remembered. Our team was unchanged, except that Jim Haley was back and Bob Moncur was back on the bench, and Bobby Cubbins was in because Barry Thomas was injured. So 3-0 loss was disappointing to everybody, and however, it didn't completely put the Gallagher corner off, because the next game was a home game against Preston, and 35,000 turned up. And we beat Preston 5-2. Now, I remember being at this game, and it was an absolutely entertaining game, because Preston had a reputation for playing football, and they did play football, and it allowed us to do what we wanted to do as well. And with the same team as we'd been playing for the previous opening 9 games, and we beat them 5-2. The goal scorers, Ron McGarry got 2, David Hilly got 2, and Bobby Cubbins got 1. Preston had a number of well-known names: Nobby Lawton, David Wilson, who became better known as a manager, Brian Godfrey, who became well known as a manager, Alex Dawson, who played centre forward for Manchester United for a few years. And on the left side of their attack was Doug Holden, England left winger, who they bought from Burnley. So 5-2, everybody's thinking, well, we're back sitting at the top again. Let's keep it there. So the next game's an away game at Plymouth, and everybody's hoping that we might get some more points there. But I'm afraid the long journey to Plymouth didn't do any favours, because we lost to Plymouth 2-1, 23,000 at the game, and Cliff Jackson, Mike Trebelow scored for them, and Ron McGarry scored our consolation. The teams are almost exactly as they were when they played at St James's Park, and as I say, except for Robert Cubbins was playing in place of Barry Thomas for us. But the 2-1 loss was, to say was disappointing was putting it mildly, because everybody was now getting used to the notion that we're up the top, we're going places. So the next game was an away game at Ipswich, and we thought, well, they're not doing too well. That's it. And nice snow-covered picture on that one, Steve.
It is, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. And everybody thought, well, we must have a chance at Ipswich, for God's sake. Well, we didn't. We got beat 3-1. Brogan and Hagan scored 2, 15,000 at the game, and Ollie Burton scored a consolation for us just before the end. And people would begin to wonder, are the wheels coming off now? Are we going to have another period of losses and what have you? One or two names in the Ipswich team. Billy Baxter, who was a stalwart of Ipswich, and also of Preston, and was well known in football circles, and became a decent manager as well. Our team was as red virtually. The only difference is that David Craig had a knock, and Bill McKinney came in at right back, and Joe Harvey was always willing to try the odd silly thing, if you call it silly, the odd different thing, if you thought he needed a reaction. Well, in this one, we lost Ron McGarry. Instead of Ron McGarry playing, he stuck Ollie Burton in the forward line, a centre back stroke full back. But he was a nice big lad. He would upset the defenders. So Ollie Burton went in the forward line, but to no avail. We lost 3-1. So people are starting to panic. We're down out of the top now. We're back down to about third. And next one's a home game against Orient. And everybody's, well, they're not doing too well. Come on, let's have a go at this. 29,000 at the game approximately. And we beat Orient 5-0. And I remember being at this one, and it was a thoroughly entertaining game, and we beat them fair and square, well and truly. Got off to a brilliant start, a Jim Ailey special from the edge of the penalty area on 1 minute, and then Pop Robson 2, and Stan Anderson 2, and again they were both from the edge of the area, but it was a brilliant win, and we played well, and the team. David Craig was back in the team, otherwise, and Pop Robson. Otherwise, it was the same 11 that had been playing all season. Orient used to rely on ex-players from a lot of the London clubs, and notable in this match was at fullback somebody called David Webb, who made his name with Chelsea, a name that people might even remember now because he was a character, David Webb, and got well known. And David Dunmore and Harry Gregory, who were well known at Arsenal and ended up their days playing at Orient. But a thoroughly good win for us, and puts us back up between second and first again. So the anticipation's grown again. So off we'll go to Manchester City, and I think there's a programme for this one.
And no, it's Norwich next, I think. Yeah, Norwich next.
All right, okay. Anyway, we go to Manchester City, hoping that we'll get something out of the game. Well, no hope, I'm afraid. We got beat 3-0. Alan Oakes, Neil Young and Derek Kevin scored for City. And from what I could read from the reports of the game, we were never in it. It was one of our worst games of the season, actually. So it kind of knocked the stuffing out of everybody. And some of the names, Derek Kevin was ex-West Brom player, an England player. Neil Young appeared on the left side of their attack. Was to be a prominent player later in his career when they started winning the championship. So 3-0 at Manchester City. And as I say, the Gallagher corner is getting just a little bit concerned. Then we've got another away game on the following Saturday, and we're at Bury, and so we think, can we get a win at Bury? They're managed by our ex-player Bob Stoke, old timer, well-liked player, and we go to Bury hoping that we get something. Well, we do. We beat Bury 2-1 with Bobby Cummins and Pop Robson scoring for us, and just before the end, Ray Parry scored for Bury a consolation goal. Bury still had Chris Harker, our ex-goalkeeper, playing for them, and in their defence, they had Brian Turner, who became a famous manager, and in the midfield, a young man making his debut who was to become very famous with Manchester City and England, Colin Bell was a name that people would know, I'm sure. Colin Bell was an outstanding midfielder who for Manchester City and England. And so we're back at a winning ways, and we're bumping along towards the top of the game. And the next game's a home game against Palace, Crystal Palace, and 31,000 at the game, so optimism's popping back up a little bit. And but Palace frustrated with to the devil. Everything we tried, hit the post, hit the bar, goalkeeper playing like a maniac. It just looked like we were never going to get it. It reminded about the last game against the Palace, how frustrating that was. Well, this was as well. And the two goals came eventually towards the end. 70 minutes, Alan Suddick, and 87 minutes, and Ron McGarry. And it was a 2-0 win. And everybody in the Gallagher corner heaving a great sigh of relief. Our team stays exactly the same, except that Moncur comes in for Eiley, who's had another knock, but otherwise exactly the same. On the left side of the attack, Alan Suddick comes in instead of Colin Taylor, but otherwise the same. The Palace have a good side. They're playing good football. Very frustrating though, and the only two names I want to mention was that in their attack they had Ronnie Allen, who made his name with England and West Brom, and Brian Whitehouse, who's another one who played for Coventry and West Brom and ended up at Palace. Brian Whitehouse was a typical, what we used to call in my day, a bustling centre forward, which meant he was very big and he knocked people about, basically. So we get back on winning ways, and we're running along towards the top of the league again. And now we're off to Norwich, which is the next picture, I think, Steve. Yep, that's it. And everybody's fingers crossed. Let's hope we can get something at Norwich. And lo and behold, we do. It's only a 1-1 draw, but at least it's a draw. 20,000 at the game. Norwich make we bite our fingernails because they go in the lead. And then Pop Robson on 70 minutes equalises. So we get a 1-1 draw, which is good. Everybody's starting to feel happy again, or better. And still at Norwich, playing for them on the left wing was Bill Punton, who we sold to Norwich, and he stayed there a while. And Gordon Bolland was another player who had a long career with Norwich and was a dangerous forward. Our team was exactly the same as played in the previous game, and again, Harvey shown his loyalty to the players that he picked. We're now at the top of the league, either top or second, and everybody's getting quite excited. And next game's at home to Rotherham, 33,000 at the game, and everybody's hopeful that this is the start of something good. And they're right, because we beat Rotherham 3-1. Jim Ailey, Alan Suddick and Ron McGarry scored the goals, and Ian Butler scored for Rotherham. And our team, just to reaffirm the same names: Marshall, Craig Clark, Anderson McGrath, and Bob Moncur, Pop Robson, Ron McGarry, Robert Cummins, Jim Ailey inside in forward in midfield, attacking midfield, in place of another injury to Bobby Cummins was there, and Alan Suddick on the left. A thoroughly entertaining game and a good win, and we're now firmly in the top two, and going between top and second all the time at the moment. So we're now off to Swansea, and everybody's thinking, well, can we get something here? They're not playing particularly well. Well, lo and behold, you shouldn't get your hopes up with a Newcastle supporter, because the Swansea beat with 3-1. And 10,000 at the game. George Kirby, Brian Hughes, and Keith Todd scored for Swansea, and Ron McGarry scored our consolation. Swansea team was one or two old timers in who had quite a good reputation in the game. Herbie Williams, who played for Wales a lot. Brian Evans, another Welsh. Derek Draper, all Welsh internationals. And Ken Pound on the left wing, who played for a lot of years. Very dangerous left winger. Had a cannonball shot. Our team, same team as Harvey picked before, but on this occasion we lose 3-1. We're knocked off the top now, so people are getting a bit of a sweat on, thinking, oh goodness, is it going to disappointment? So we've got Derby at home next. I think there might be a picture for that. Yep, that's it. And 2-2. Derby were playing quite well and were near the top with us. So everybody was hoping we would get something from them. And typical of us, just after half-time, Bobby Cummins scores a goal in the first half. Ron McGarry just after half-time makes it 2-0. And we're cruising, so we think. And then on 80 minutes, Alan Durbin, who became famous because he becomes manager of a team not far away from us, and Eddie Thomas for Derby on the last minute, 89th minute, scored the equaliser 2-2, so that you could hear the collective sigh in the Gallagher corner when the goal went in. And of course, all the people that went home when the 10-minute flag went down, they didn't even see the equaliser. They were home having their tea by then. But 2-2, it kept going. We're in the right place, put it that way. We're bounced along top or second top, and people are still got a bit of hope. The Derby team, well, Gordon Hughes, who we sold to Derby a couple of years before, was on the right wing. Alan Durbin, as I say, who later became manager of Sunderland. And Bill Curry, an ex-centre forward of Newcastle, who'd gone to Derby 3 years previously, was still playing for Derby. An entertaining game, but huge disappointment to get 2-0 up and then end up 2-2. So people are now happy, but would like to see some more victories instead of draws. And of course, we'll go away. Next game is away to Swindon. And lo and behold, I don't know what changed for them, but Swindon, we beat 6-1. Now that really sent a message home to the fans. 16,000 at Swindon at the county ground. Ironically, Alan Suddick opened in 1 minute, and John Trollope equalised for Swindon, and everybody's thinking, "Oh God, this is not going to go the way we wanted." But then suddenly Willie Penman and Stan Anderson, before half an hour, both scored. And then just after half an hour, Dave Hilly, Anderson again, and Willie Penman on the hour. So 6-1 to Swindon, to beat Swindon. And that, again, the same team that Harvey's been picking all season. With Swindon had one or two people who had made names for themselves. The one notable one who I'll mention was Mike Summerby, who made his name with Manchester City and England, of course. Fantastic right winger. And on the left was a young man called Don Rogers, who was coming into Swindon Town, who spent his whole life at Swindon, despite Swindon getting offers from every club in the country, including us, to try and buy Don Rogers. A brilliant left winger, who was still almost single-handedly winning the League Cup at one stage. So 6-1 set us on the path to getting back to the top of the league, and slowly but surely, as we get towards Christmas, we're on the top of the league. And the next game was a home game against Portsmouth. Now, Portsmouth weren't playing particularly well. They were only about the middle of the league. And everybody was hoping that we'd be able to get something out of this game. Well, 30,000 at the game, and we beat them 3-0. Anderson, Hockey and Eiley scored the goals. 2 up by half-time. And Jim Eiley scored another one just on 80 minutes. And we beat Portsmouth 3-0. And again, the team was exactly the same as Harvey been picking all season, except that he'd slotted Willie Penman in because of injuries. But otherwise, the same 11 picked again. Portsmouth always had some interesting characters. Jimmy Gordon at centre-back, who became a manager of Portsmouth. Jimmy Dickinson, who played for England for years and years and years. And centre-forward Ron Tyndall, who they bought from Chelsea, who's a dangerous player. But on this day, he wasn't dangerous against Newcastle. We beat them 3-0. A good win, and people went home happy and doubly happy because they realised that win was going to take them to the top of the league. The next game was a following Saturday, and it was another home game against Northampton Town. Now, surprisingly, although Northampton were no great name as a team, they were second in the second division, and had already beaten us, and we were very hopeful that if we could beat them again, we would do a league place no harm at all. Well, lo and behold, the lads switched it on, and we beat Northampton 5-0. Trevor Hockey, Ron McGarry got a hat-trick, and an own goal by Northampton defender called Everett. Same team, Marshall, Craig, Clark, Anderson, McGrath, Eiley, Hockey, Hilly, McGarry, Penman, Suddick. It's monotonous, but that's Harvey's mantra at the moment. You know, be loyal to the players that's playing for you. And Northampton had 1 or 2 characters in their team. Brian Harvey, a goalkeeper that they bought from us, who I knew and played with in the juniors. Lovely lad, Brian. Very smart lad. Whenever you went anywhere with the juniors and Brian was in the team, there was always plenty of girls around. And Theo Foley at fullback was an old clogger, as they call him right here, from Charlton. And Tommy Robson on the left wing, who was a Gateshead lad and eventually became a Newcastle player. And he was the biggest threat to her that day. In fact, he was the only threat to her that day. So we were troubled by a Geordie in that game against Northampton. So we're off now to Southampton. I think there's a programme there for Southampton. Yeah. And we're all hoping that now we've got our second win, as it were, that would keep the winning run going. 22,000 in the crowd, and with an unchanged team, we go to Southampton and we beat them 1-0. Alan Suddick scored the goal. Southampton have the same team that played at St James's with Tony Knapp, Ken Wimshurst, Terry Payne, Martin Chivers, Jimmy Melia, who they had just bought from Liverpool, and John Sydenham on the left wing. Quite a dangerous team, but we'll beat them 1-0, and we're never any danger of losing with Alan Suddick scoring the goal that mattered. So I now got a derby game against Middlesbrough, and everybody's thinking, well, that's it. We've got to win this one. This is important. Middlesbrough weren't playing particularly well at the time, though. 38,000 at the game at Ayresome Park, and this is the one that gave me an opportunity to go and visit me family in Teesside and go to the match as well. And we beat Middlesbrough 2-0. Dave Hilly and Mel Nurse, their centre-half, scored an own goal. It would have been a goal that would have gone in off Ron McGarry, but McGarry harassed Nurse to death, and he ended up putting the ball in his own net. a solid victory. That's how I'd describe it. There was no way Middlesbrough were going to get anything out of this game. And the team was had one or two good names. Mel Nurse, as I've already mentioned, Ian Gibson, Jimmy Irvine, and Don Masson, who played for Middlesbrough for a lot of years and became a well-known Northeast figure in football. But it was great to get a derby victory at Middlesbrough to keep the top of the league. We're now at that period of the year when the Football Association, in their wisdom, try to keep local teams together over a holiday. And our next game is our home game against Middlesbrough. So the Middlesbrough fans travel to Tyneside for Christmas, and we travel to Teesside for Christmas. So on the 20th of December, Middlesbrough come to us, and you can tell people are getting confident. The crowd is now 55,000 against Middlesbrough, and we beat Middlesbrough 2-1. However, not without a fright, because in 10 minutes, Arthur Case scores a goal for Middlesbrough, and everybody starts biting their fingernails, thinking, "Oh God!" But by half time, Dave Hillies equalised, and just after the second start of the second half, Dave Hillies scores again to make it 2-1, and that's how it stayed till the end. A good, hard derby match, though. Middlesbrough didn't come to lie down, and definitely gave away a game. And the team, boringly, exactly the same. Marshall, Craig, Clark, Anderson, McGrath, Eiley, Hockey, Hilly, McGarry, Penman, and Suddick. They served well on that day and would do so again. Middlesbrough's team was very similar to the one that played a couple of days beforehand. They had a couple of injuries, so a young man called Frank Spraggan came into their defence. Now, that's a name that people even now might remember, because Frank Spraggan was a player for a long, long time. Did a lot of work off the field, charities for various things, because I think he had a member of the family, somebody that had a heart problem, and I think Frank Spraggan did a lot with heart charities later on. So now we're top, and that's a very good Christmas present for the Gallagher Corner. The next game is a home game against Huddersfield, and 2nd of January. And again, people are very confident that something's going to happen. And with 46,000 at the game, they weren't disappointed. Huddersfield we beat Huddersfield 2-1. Ron McGarry scores in the 26th and 69th minute. And just before the end, Tony Layton scores for Huddersfield just to put the nerves on end in the Gallagher Corner. We're hoping that it's not going to happen again, not another late equaliser. But it didn't. They didn't hold on. They could have easily got more goals. But thanks to their goalkeeper, Ray Wood, Huddersfield held on to keep it to 2-1. And the only difference in the Huddersfield team to the one we played at Huddersfield was a young left winger called Mike O'Grady played for them, and he ended up going to Leeds and making quite a name for himself in years ahead. So we're now sitting well and truly top of the league in the new year, and we've got a trip to Swansea. And but this is for the FA Cup, third round of the FA Cup. There's mixed feelings in the Gallagher Corner, I can tell you. Do we want a cup run? Do we want to get promotion? And I have to say that if you'd asked that question, I think you got 15,000 in Gallagher Corner saying promotion, for God's sake, promotion. Well, they needn't have worried, because we didn't win the cup match at Swansea. We got beat 1-0 at the Vetchfield, 19,000 at the game, and once Swansea scored, that was it. Now, there were those cynics in the Gallagher Corner who claimed that we weren't unhappy about that. I don't know about that. I really, these and there are a number of games where people tout the notion that we lost deliberately, or we didn't try, or that sort of thing. Well, I'm never a great believer in that with professional footballers. If they got anything about them, they'll try. Anyway, we lost 1-0 to Swansea, so we don't need to worry about the FA Cup anymore. We're out of it now, well and truly. So we go to Coventry, and having walloped Coventry at Newcastle, we think, well, Highfield Road. Why can't we do the same there? Well, unfortunately, we didn't. Whether it was a hangover from the cup loss or not, I don't know. But we lost 5-4 to Coventry. Hilly 2, Ron McGarry 2 scored our goals. And typical of players who used to play for us, Ken Hale was in the team and scored a hat-trick. And Coventry won 5-4. Ken Hale was outstanding, I've got to say, and somebody I know, and he played really well. And he would save his best game for Newcastle United, wouldn't he? So we lost 5-4, 28,000 at the match for Coventry, which is a big game. Our team, same team that's been playing all season, but they couldn't beat Coventry that day. So we come back home to a match, which is a home game against Cardiff, and everybody's hoping that we can get on back to winning ways. We're still top of the league. We're only just stopped by an odd point from Northampton, would you believe? They're still hanging on to the top of the league. 38,000 at the game for Cardiff, and we needn't have worried. Dave Hilly scored just before half time, and Stan Anderson scores right on the hour to make it 2-0. So we beat Cardiff 2-0, and the Cardiff City team was very, very much the same as the one that played there. Ivor Allchurch didn't play; he was injured, and a young man called Derek Tapscott, who they just bought from Arsenal, took Ivor Allchurch's place. So a 2-0 win against Cardiff, and we're back sitting on top of the league and hoping that things are safe now. We're definitely on our way. Well, we shouldn't get too hopeful. Away game to Preston is the next one, and we lose 2-0. Would you believe? And Deepdale 19,000 at the game, and an old hand called Brian. Thanks, Steve. I'd forgotten about that one. Brian Godfrey scored 2 goals to make it 2-0, and we were never in the game. As if you read the reports and read the paper, we just had one of those off days, and it was pretty awful. So we're now next game is a home game against Ipswich, and still bumping along the top, either top or second for most of the time. So Ipswich come 30,000 at the game, and everybody's hoping that we get something out of this one. Well, we do, but it's only a draw, a 2-2 draw, but again, terribly frustrating draw. Alan Suddick puts us ahead in 5 minutes. Joe Baker, ex-Arsenal centre forward, equalises for them on 53 minutes. And then, lo and behold, Stan Anderson on 87 minutes makes it 2-1. And everybody thinks, oh, great. And would you believe it, 89 minutes, Derek Tracy for Ipswich makes it 2-2. And as again, you can hear the collective sigh in the Gallagher corner when that one went in. Same team for us. Marshall, Craig, Clark, Anderson, McGrath, Eiley, Hockey, Hilly, McGarry, Penman and Suddick. For Ipswich, theirs was the same team that played at Ipswich. Except Jerry Baker, the centre forward that had just bought from Arsenal, was in the team this time. But a 2-2 draw. At least we didn't lose, but it still kept winning at the top. So the next game is an away game at Orient, and I think there may be a programme for that, Steve. And yep, that's it. Now, lo and behold, match of the day started on this day.
Wow.
Yeah. And lo and behold, they came and took shots of our game against Leyton Orient. And so on the first match of the day, fantastic, except we bloody lost 2-1, which knocked the shine off a little bit. Joe Elwood scored 2 goals for Orient, and 70 minutes we were 2-0 down. And just before the end, Ron McGarry scored a consolation. But typical us, we're on first match of the day. They come to see we, and we lose 2-1 to Orient. Our team, as read, Marshall, Craig, Clark, Anderson, McGrath, Eiley, Robson, McGarry, Cummins, Hilly, and Tommy Knox is now joined with from Chelsea, and he's on the left wing. We've now got a home game against Bury, and everybody thinks, well, surely we can turn it around with a home game against Bury. That, you know, we'd give them a game at their place. We should do even better here. 35,000 at the game, which shows the excitement that is starting to grow. And lo and behold, guess to lose 3 at home to Bury. Bury scored 2 in the first half, 2 up at half an hour, and one of the goals scored by a young man called Paul Durant on their left wing, on their right wing rather, who was from Wallsend. He went to St Aidan's School in Wallsend, played for Wallsend Boys when I did, and he ended up at Bury and made our lives a mystery on this particular day. And probably the best game he's had for Bury. Anyway, we're 2-0 down at half time. Just after half time, Alan Suddick scores at 2-1. Then on 80 minutes, Stan Anderson scores, so it's 2-2. And everybody thinks, oh, well, at least we're going to get a draw. Well, we didn't. 89 minutes, a man called Yard from Bury made it 3-2 to Bury. And everybody went home. Spitting blood and feathers, I've got to say, because they really did hope that this victory against Bury would cement our place at the top, but I'm afraid it didn't. We lost 3-2. So we're now off to Portsmouth, and everybody's thinking, well, we can't even win a home game against Bury, or we're going to win a away game against Portsmouth. Now, Portsmouth was always an event in my football family, because they used to like to go to Portsmouth. Win or lose, they used to like to have a trip to Portsmouth. Because one of my uncles was in the Navy, and but the whole family seemed to like going to Portsmouth. They were well received. They knew the pubs they wanted to go to, and they used to persuade Alfie Lauer to get Holland's bus out and take them to Portsmouth. And they did for this one. Well, obviously their prayers were answered, because we beat Portsmouth 2-1, which wasn't expected, because Portsmouth were now playing well. 20,000 at the game. Portsmouth go 1 up through Brian Lewis, and Pop Robson equalises within a minute. And then 71 minutes, and Bobby Cummins scores the winner, 2-1. I'm told, I remember them coming back from the match and saying what a good game it was, what a good game of football it was. I suppose it looked even better when they realised the win had put us back top of the league. So no wonder they were happy about that. Portsmouth, very predictable team, with Jimmy Gordon, Jimmy Dickinson in the team, and Albert McCall on the left wing, who they just bought from Arsenal, I think. Arsenal. So 2-1 win at Portsmouth puts us back top of the league. So people are starting to get excited again, and Northampton now are still winning, and they're still second, not far behind. It's all about the odd point or two. So the next game's a home game against Norwich, and we think, well, we've got a draw there. Surely we can beat Norwich at home, and lo and behold, they do. They 41,500 at the game, which again shows the confidence that's coming back to the team. The supporters really starting to believe now that something special can happen. And by 40 minutes, we're 2-0 up. Bobby Cummins and Pop Robson score the 2 goals. Norwich were never really in the game, as my memory is, and their team was had Ron Davison, who became a big centre forward with Southampton in the first division later on in his career. So a 2-0 win, home win against Norwich, and we're firmly at the top of the league. Next game is a away game against Rotherham, and we had a bad game against Rotherham at home early in the season, so I hope we wouldn't repeat that. And lo and behold, we drew a 1-1. Rotherham gave us a very good game, and their scorer was a young man called Albert Bennett, who in a season later Harvey would buy for Newcastle United. It's interesting how many people who have good games against Newcastle, a couple of months later, Harvey buys them for us. Albert Bennett came to us and was quite a popular forward for us. Played attacking midfield or centre forward. His nickname in the Gallagher corner was Arkle. Albert had problems with injuries, and it was always his ankles that were the problem. And so to support his ankles, they always used to strap them up. So his ankles, his boots always seemed white. So when he ran, his feet were very obvious. He had an obvious trot, and the comedy crew in the Gallagher corner nicknamed him Arkle. So his Arkle playing today in Albert was. But Albert was a good player for us, scored a lot of good goals. So 1-1, our team exactly the same as been playing all season. And we're back still sat at the top of the league. Next game's a home game against Swansea. And by now people are believing that it's not a flash in the pan. Although we lost in the cup to Swansea, people still think that we're going to turn them over here, and they're not disappointed because we do. We beat them 3-1. Willie Penman hat-trick. Delightful little player, Willie Penman. Wasn't very big, but terribly, very quick and deft and good eye for goal. Hat-trick for Willie Penman. And Ken Pound, their left winger, who could shot like a cannonball, give them the consolation. So we're now sitting firmly on top of the league. The team's exactly the same as played all season, with Tommy Knox now with permanent fixture at left on the left wing because of he's been purchased from Chelsea. And Swansea, their team, much the same as the one that played at Swansea, but one slight change that is that Johnny McGuigan, who we transferred out, is now transferred to Swansea, and there he was appearing against us at St James's Park in that game. So another win, firmly top of the league, and as I say, people now feeling confident to think that we are going to make this promotion, and we're now away to Derby. Derby gave us a bad time when we were at St James's, and people were a bit nervous about this one. This is another one that my crew used to like to go to because my dad's aunt used to live, sister rather, used to live in Derby, so they used to take all the lads to my aunt Nan's to have a cup of tea and get the black market fags at the corner shop and all that sort of thing. However, again, they came back very happy because we beat Derby 3-0. And with the story that we never looked like not winning this one. We really were on top of this game. Hilly, Eiley and Tommy Knox scored the goals. And as I say, the same 11. Marshall, Craig, Clark, Anderson, McGrath, Eiley, Robson, Hilly, Cummins, Penman and Knox is trotting out these victories. And fantastic when the teams hits the top. But we're now firmly at the top. In fact, so firmly at the top, we need one more win to be unbeatable. One more win and we're guaranteed promotion. And the next game's at home against Swindon. And I think there's a couple of pictures for this one, Steve. Oh, no, that's Bolton. That's the next one. Is there a picture of some crowd there?
Somebody on the pitch.
That's it. That's Swindon. Sorry, that's when the goal went in against Swindon, and that goal meant that we were promoted, provided we hung on till the end. Half an hour, 31 minutes, and people couldn't wait. They just ran onto the pitch. All kids, of course, you can see, but never mind. It was a celebration of the fact we were top and couldn't be knocked off if we win this game. And we held on till the end. Actually, it should have been 3 or 4, even 5 now, because we ran Swindon off the pitch, but just couldn't put the ball in the back of the net. And Swindon had Mike Summerby and Don Rogers in the team, but that didn't make any difference. We still beat them well and truly. So that meant that irrespective of what happened for the rest of the season, we were guaranteed to be either first or second in the championship, or in the second division rather, and we were going up, and everybody was to say they were relieved is putting it mildly. 35,000 at the game, and as I say, another collective sigh of relief that we're going up. The next game is a home game against Bolton, which I think is the next one. We beat Bolton 2-0 and 60,000 at this game, just to cement the promotion. The fans turned up in numbers, 60,000 for a nondescript match against Bolton, because people knew we were going to be promoted. Willie Penman Jamaili scored the goals, and Bolton, although they had a strong team at the time, Eddie Hopkinson, who was an England goalkeeper, Francis Lee, who became much more famous with Manchester City, centre forward called Wyn Davies, who after this game, Joe Harvey tried to buy for £80,000. All signed and sealed, and Wyn Davies wouldn't come. He wouldn't come. Now, I don't know why, but the stories I heard was that he priced himself out of the deal. He asked for too much money. But he could have come then, but didn't. But as history tells me, of course, he did a little while later. So, and on the left wing, Gordon Taylor, who Bolton bought from us. Next game is away to Palace. There might be a picture for that one.
No, it's a home game next, I think.
All right, okay.
Is it this one? Yeah, maybe. Yeah,
that's Palace. That's
another posh-looking program. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it is. A nice typeset. You know, it has a bit of class about it, I've got to say, which is more than you can say about that team sometimes. They went away to Palace and got a creditable 1-1 draw, and Bobby Cummins scored our goal to equalise a goal from someone called Alan Stevenson, who was a Tynesider, but also for Palace, playing for them was a young man called Charlie Woods, who I played with as a junior, and who we transferred to Palace a couple of years beforehand. And centre forward was Cliff Holton, who Palace got from Arsenal, who was a dangerous centre forward. So 1-1, and we're still sitting top of the league. We're not just getting promoted; we're top of the league. And the next game is the way to Bolton, I think. Yes, that's it. And we again hope to get something out of this game. And I've got to say, the team's playing with the freedom of a team that's promoted. They know they're going up. We typical Newcastle put one edge. Dennis Butler scores for them really early on, but Bobby Cummins scores the equaliser later on, and we get another 1-1 draw with effectively the same team as we've had right throughout the season. As I said at the beginning, 44 games, only 20 players used across the whole season, which is quite something. Then we're at home to Manchester City, and I think there might be some pictures with this one. We're at home to Manchester City on the 24th of April. Yeah, that's the programme. And I think there may be one or two other pictures, which there's the lads celebrating promotion, but not just celebrating promotion, because by getting a draw against Manchester City in this game, they're champions. They're going up as champions. And there they are with the trophy, with Lord Westwood, who's now chairman, Stan Anderson, Joe Harvey. It's interesting. We were champions due to that draw, but if we'd lost that game, Northampton would have went up as champions, believe it or not. And there's the title. There's the championship table to show how close it was with Northampton. But once you get below Northampton, you know, the 6 or 7 points between us and Bolton Wanderers and Southampton, even more. But the second division in those days, if you look at the bottom end, 34 was 20th, but you go right up to the middle of the league before there's anybody away from that, towards 40 points. Quite fascinating, really, how close it was. So we've done it. We're promoted, and everybody's, to say they're thrilled to bits is putting it mildly. But I have to say, it all down to Joe Harvey, in my opinion. He takes belief in certain players, and he kept that belief. That spine throughout the season that I mentioned at the beginning. Marshall in goal, Anderson, McGrath and Ailey in the middle, and with McGarry or various other people playing at centre forward. They stay in the team, and I think that's what makes the team for Harvey. McGarry ends up as our top scorer with 19 goals, but others like Penman and Hilly and Suddick all weighing with double figures, which is how we can get the sort of numbers in goals for that we did, which is fantastic. But in my opinion, that was Joe Harvey's title by all means. He manufactured that by the way he managed the team, and I think people appreciated that. I've not mentioned the League Cup. Why did I not mention the League Cup? Because we got knocked out straight away by bloody Lincoln City, and I didn't want to give them any advertising for knocking out the League Cup. However, I think they did me a favour because it meant they could concentrate on getting promotion. So that's 1964 in a nutshell, Steve. Promotion, lots of interesting things to look forward to, and actually they deserved it. There was a spell where they had 7 victories on the trot, which is a record that wasn't broken until a couple of years ago. 7 victories on the trot. And they had 15 clean sheets, which bears testament to the spine of the team, in my view, and to the Craig and Clark fullbacks added to that. That was the rock of promotion, in my view. So there
Brilliant.
You are, Steve.
Brilliant stuff as always, George, and a happy end of a season for a change. Look forward to what next week brings. But for now, George, thanks very much, mate. And
thanks,
just
Steve.
as always, got to thank our sponsors. Big thank you to Skips and Bins. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks to Darren Baldwin Funerals, independent funeral directors based at 304 Old Durham Road, Gateshead. 0191 478 2730. Website darrenbaldwinfunerals.co.uk. Thanks to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD, hemp and cannabinoid specialists. You can find them at thegohd.com. Thanks to 3 Properties. Contact Phil at 3property.co.uk and he might be able to do a bit of business for you, or give him a ring on 07966 871 993. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at mrvickys.co.uk. Thanks to Media Arts for the video side of things, and qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wales and Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, nufcmatters.com. If you want to subscribe, hit the NUFC Matters logo in the bottom right-hand corner and you can subscribe for free. Hit the thumb up to like the video, click share to share to your social media, and drop into the comments box to post a comment to like-minded Newcastle fans. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify. If you want to join, then hit join underneath the video or put your smartphone over the QR code. It will take you straight to the membership part of the website. If you pay a £25 one-off fee, you get a cup, a pen, a membership card and a scarf, an entry into the monthly draw. And we also send you a car sticker for free if you are a subscriber. Simply email john@nufcmatters.com and he will post you one out. We support the food bank on the channel, NUFC fans, foodbank.co.uk. The match day bucket is virtual, 365 days of the year. Get yourself onto there if you want to make a donation. And don't forget, we have an evening with Supermac. Friday, the 11th of November, 7 o'clock. Tickets are a tenner. Tables are £650. Telephone 0191 237 0133 if you'd like to attend. Also got a takeover anniversary party on the 7th of October. Tickets are £2 on the door or via the website, nufcmatters.com. Just a bit of a get-together amongst like-minded Newcastle fans. Good chance to meet some of the NUFC Matters regulars. And don't forget, pre-match entertainment at the Dog and Parrot. Supermac does the Dog and Parrot, and John Gibson and John Anderson do Pumphrey's. So if you're looking for a bit of entertainment pre-match when you're in Newcastle, get yourself along to the venue. Supermac also does after the game. But for now, George, absolute pleasure. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Thank you. Goodbye.